lots of thoughts trying to come out at the same time. But,
The suggestion, though, on this particular issue is that as Reform UK keeps besting you in the polls, actually that you've been pushed into coming forward with a policy on migration before you'd originally planned to. Is that true?
Some polls have Reform ahead, some polls have us ahead.
But
anyone who is obsessing about polls at this point in the electoral cycle needs to get a life, right? The election is not for 4 years' time. What's happening this week coming is that the Labour Party is bringing its border and security bill forward. That gives us an opportunity to put down amendments and hold Labour to account. And that's what we're going to do by bringing forward sensible policies that are timely, because if we don't act now, the government doesn't act now, it's going to have a big effect on the number of people who stay in the country long term.
Are you seriously telling our viewers this morning that it doesn't bother you that the Conservatives are sometimes third in the polls, or at the very least bumping around the same level of Nigel Farage's party?
You take my seat, Laura, where Reform took a chunk of my vote at the last election. I have a lot of colleagues that are in the same place. Of course, we take the challenge from Reform very, very seriously. But it's very important that we hold this failing government to account on the mistakes it's making on immigration, the mistakes it's making on Chagos, the mistakes, very serious mistakes, it's making on the economy, which are affecting people in my constituency in Brentwood and August.
Let's be honest here. If the Tories were ahead of Labour and Reform UK in the polls, you'd have every fucking Conservative MP shouting it from the rooftops and probably calling for a general election right now. But when the polls don't look so good for them, suddenly polling doesn't matter. And whilst it's true that polling this early in the electoral cycle, this early, it's been, 6 months since the last election? It doesn't really give us much information, since we don't know who will be leading the parties by then, or what the political and economic landscape will look like 4 years down the line. It still gives MPs something to think about, something to fill their time for the next 4.5 years. One of Kemi Badenoch's shadow cabinet secretaries members dismissed the idea of Reform UK leading in the polls. Is he right? Or is he just trying to push off or brush off the growing influence of Reform UK? The thing is, Reform UK is growing. They are popular. It's starting to pressure the Tories into addressing issues like immigration, possibly sooner than they had planned. So is that true? Is Reform UK forcing the Tories to react? Polling is showing Reform is ahead in some cases, but Tories are ahead in others. But anyone obsessing over the polls this early on needs to get a laugh, right? The election isn't for another 4 years, but right now the Labour Party is moving forward with their border and security bill, giving us the chance to challenge and put forward sensible policies, and destroying pensioners while they're at it, and going back on their Heathrow expansion policies. But hey-ho, let's be clear. Do I care that the Tories, who's betrayed so many people for so many years, find themselves third in the polls? But here's where things get interesting. Has Laura Kuenssberg switched teams? Has she gone from being a Tory ally to now back in Reform UK? There's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy here when it comes to the media and Reform. The more the media hype Farage and Reform, the better they seem to do in the polls. And the more they succeed, the more the medium gives them attention, creating a paradoxical cycle. This is a huge problem for the Tories, though, because despite having more seats than Reform UK, it feels like all we fucking hear in the news is reform, reform, reform. If you're not tuned into Parliament and you're just getting your news from social media or the media in general, you'd think fucking Farage was the leader of the opposition, not Kemi Badenoch. The Conservatives are in a tough spot, and hiring Kemi Badenoch was awful. Trying to defend 14 years of decisions, including austerity and Brexit, whilst Reform UK just sits there unchallenged, saying, if you can do it, I can do it better. It's a game. They don't have to explain anything about fucking anything. And the media seems determined to give Farage a platform every single turn. It's not just the BBC. Farage is getting the red carpet treatment from ITV, Channel 4, Sky News, and of course he's completely unchallenged on GB News and Talk TV. It's like they've realised that having Farage on boosts their ratings, which is ironic because we're talking about Farage in this video and my viewing figures are still awful. So they keep giving him this stage and it's harming democracy, and honestly it's harming the Tories as well. The real test will come in May. Will Reform UK win a bunch of council seats? If they don't, it will raise alarms because it will show that all this media hype isn't translating into real public support, which we've discussed in previous videos. Farage could be in serious trouble, and all that media's grooming and pushing will have been for absolutely nothing. So let me know what you think in the comments. I've been Jay from Just Jake. Feel free to buy me a coffee or a beer if you're feeling nice enough. and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. You actually made it to the end of the video. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, which, why haven't you already, is somewhere over there. And also, if you want to watch more videos, also check out over there. I've been Jake from Just Jake. See you later.